Everyone's a winner, we're making our fame. Bonafide hustler, making my name. All I wanna do is take your money. All I wanna do is
Hey guys, my name is Ethan, and you're watching Ethan Longboard's YouTube channel. As this is my first video, I think it's very appropriate that we start at the very beginning of longboarding. That's right, in this video I'm going to teach you how to ride any longboard or skateboard. Let's get into it. To learn how to longboard, you firstly need a board, such as this Omen 33 single kick, probably a helmet of sorts, and also gum bottom shoes such as Vans or Adidas Sambas. So right about now we're going to do a bit of board anatomy for those who don't know what's going on or want to learn a little more about their board before they start riding. So starting here, the wood part, this is the deck. So if you're ever looking to expand your collection of boards, you can buy individual decks and mount them, or you can buy a completed longboard, but this part is called the deck. So moving on to this axle looking thing here, these are called trucks. Why, I'm not sure, but this is what you turn from, and depending on how tight or loose this bolt, which is called the kingpin, is, that will depend on how carvy or how well your board will turn. So a tight kingpin is better for going downhill when you don't want your board to wobble, but a loose kingpin is good for just cruising around, having fun. The little red guys, these are bushings. So they won't be red on everyone's board, but on mine they are. So these are kind of shock pads for your truck, so to speak. Depending on how soft, squishy, and absorbent they are, they will be more responsive when you turn, or a little harder and less responsive. Again, what you want your bushings to be just depends on how you're going to ride. So if I turn the board on its side, we have the wheels. These are some free range 62mm 78A wheels with a 44mm contact patch. So to go over what all that means to you, 62mm is pretty self-explanatory. That's the wheel's diameter. Pretty much the smaller the board, generally you're going to want smaller wheels, and if you're doing like competitive downhill, you want to have really big wheels. So then the next number, 78A, that is the wheel's durometer, so how hard it is. So generally a traditional skateboard has like 100A wheels, so those are going to be really hard. They'll slide really easy, but they can't roll over like really rough pavement like this. So a 78A is a pretty standard longboard wheel. You can still break it out into slides, but it'll roll over rough pavement, feels nice and soft. So depending on what you're doing, will decide what kind of wheel you want. I like this kind of medium wheel, and the contact patch is this little bit on the side of the wheel. You can see it's nice and dirty on mine. That decides how much of the wheel will be on the ground contacting it. So that would be 44mm in this wheel's case. Inside the wheel we find this little yellow thing, and that is the wheel's bearing, so helps it turn. You can't see it, but it says ABEX 7 on it. So bearings are rated on the ABEX system based on how fast they roll. You shouldn't worry about this, and quite frankly, no one should worry about this, because that only really matters if you're going really fast. So when we turn around to the top of the deck, we see that firstly there's a bunch of little bolts with holes in them, so that's where our truck's mounted, and the space between them is called the wheelbase. So now you know what that means. So if we look in, there's this little grainy texture and substance here. That is grip tape. This board is clear grip, most boards are black grip. Nice and sticky, grips your foot, lets you pivot your feet, keeps you on the board. Moving on to the shape of boards, we can see that this board has a nice little tail at the back and a little nubby nose. So this is what we call a kicktail, because when you kick it down you can do ollies and the like. I won't show that in that video, but yeah, so that's your kicktail. Once you get your helmet on, you're ready to start learning how to ride a longboard. Before you can even start riding the board, you need to figure out how you're going to ride the board. So we're going to be talking about stance right now. So with your stance, when you're pushing, you've got one foot on the board at the front of the board and one foot off the board. So this is your pushing foot. And then when you're riding the board and not pushing, you're going to want that pushing foot in the back of the board. So which foot to put where really depends on a lot of factors. So if you use regular stance, as it's called, you have your left foot in front of the board. That's because a lot of people like the analogy of which foot would you plant when you kick a kickball in a hypothetical game of kickball. So for a lot of right-footed people, or really all right-footed people, they will plant their left foot and kick through with their right foot. This isn't a kickball video. I don't care about my form. So that would mean they put their left foot on the board because that's the foot they have more balance with, usually. So I personally am what's called in the community goofy. So I have my right foot planted on the board because that's what's more comfortable for me. You shouldn't take anything anyone else says about which foot you should have forward. It should be whatever you're most comfortable with. And while you're just learning how to skate, I highly recommend trying both feet so you can get a sense of what you're better with and what feels more natural to you. And even once you're well into longboarding or skateboarding, you should honestly learn how to push with both feet so you can ride forwards or backwards on the board. That's a really useful skill. I still need to work on that personally. But you're going to want to find what stance works best for you, and that will be the stance that you use while you ride a longboard or a skateboard. To start, we need to get very comfortable with a longboard under our feet, and also with the basic movement of pushing. So for this part, put your front foot on the longboard and just push the board back and forth under your foot to get used to the movement of the board underfoot while pushing. Once you've done that for a little bit, you can move on to the second step, the actual pushing motion. And for that, you really want to keep your knee bent to avoid injuries and falls. And starting from the front truck of your board, push and go. To practice our pushing motion without hopping on the board, just head down the street, pushing along, just to get very used to the motion that pushing will make. once you've gotten the basics and nuances of pushing down, there are a couple things you want to keep in mind. Firstly, when pushing, you want to keep your leg at a nice straight angle, very parallel to the board. Too far out and you'll lose power, too far in, and you'll end up hitting the wheel, knocking yourself off the board. So now that you're comfortable with pushing, now we need to get the second element of being able to ride a longboard. Getting on the board. So for this, when you ride a board, you want to keep both feet straight outwards, perpendicular to the board. So to do this from a pushing position, you want to hop up and pivot, and that's where the gum-soled shoe comes into play, because it interacts with the grip tape on the board a little better. So what you're going to want to do to practice this motion is standing still just over and over again until you feel 100% confident with the balance. Just do this. And again, making sure your foot is fully swiveled every time and both feet are facing outwards when you do this motion. Once you're comfortable with all the fundamentals of pushing and hopping on the board, you can get right on, put them all together, and start having a rad time on your longboard. The next thing you're going to want to learn as a rider is carving. This is the bread and butter turning method of any longboarder, and if you need to get around obstacles, turn corners, or just have an absolutely amazing time on your board, you're going to want to learn how to carve. So to start practicing, you're going to want to get very comfy, shifting your weight back and forth on the board. So let's get into that and demonstrate that. So once you've done a little practice shifting your weight on the board, you can start throwing that into your basic riding. So taking a push, getting on, and turning. Once you're comfortable with shifting your weight on the board, what you're going to want to start working on is combining all the things we've already learned. So pushing, getting on the board, and a little bit of carving. So you can start with 1, 2, 3 pushes, depending on how comfortable you are with that first part, and combining that with a little forward or backwards lean. Skateboarding, longboarding terms, it's heel side or toe side, based on whether you're turning over your toes or your heels. It's pretty self-explanatory. So let's get out here, give our boards a push, and do a carve. Once you're comfortable with carving, you can start getting back, getting forth, and ultimately having a really rad time. Let's go. So if you'll notice in that last clip, when I was dismounting my board to prevent myself from inevitably crashing or going too fast if I wasn't that comfortable with high speeds, what I did was I got low and I shuffled my feet. So this prevents two things. The first thing is landing hard on one leg, which will really hurt your ankle and your knee, and is not good for you. And the other one is if you're going too fast, you'll fall forward, stuttering and such, and that'll hurt not only your legs, but if you fall too hard, your face. So that's why I get nice and low, put my weight backwards, because all my momentum's carrying me forward, so that'll stop me faster. And I shuffle my feet to prevent too much shock from being put on any of my one knee or ankle. So when it comes to foot braking, it's a pretty simple concept. If you're riding like me, you're going to take your left foot or your back foot, whatever that would be, off the board, and a combination of putting it down and having it slide on the ground, and that'll really reduce your momentum. There are a couple downsides to this. Again, it's not the most effective at high speeds. At high speeds, though, really the best way to stop is to either crash or slide. We're not going to go over sliding in this video. It's a more of an advanced technique. So when you're foot braking, it's really going to stop you in a nice, controlled manner, and that'll be good for you if you're just cruising along, you need to quickly stop. Maybe there's a curb and you aren't comfortable dropping curbs. However, foot braking will get really nasty on your shoes if you do it too much. I have a couple pair of shoes that they don't have much grip on the ball of the foot or on the heel from over foot braking. So just keep in mind that foot braking will damage your shoes over time, but I wouldn't worry about it.